We always like to hear you, and everybody is welcome. And I've been looking for things to read that I don't believe I've shared with you guys before, and I'm looking for things from March that were written in March because it is March. And I would have had my matching hat to this for St. Patrick's Day, but Tom has it. Dun, 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 and he gave me this hat. But this first one was written on March 14th, and it was Pi Day.
Pi Day?
If you want it, no, PI is in 3.1415927, yeah, pi. Not, I don't write about desserts. Just so you know, I don't. So this is actually about the numeric value. This is called value of pi. Why is this number with far too many decimal places so important anyway? They say the area of a circle is pi r squared, but the Bible will tell you that must mean that pi is 3. No decimals, just 3, based on the number of cubits to make it around a circle. Actually, a rabbi later argued that the Bible would be correct if in the Bible they measure the inside of a pot to define the circle versus the outside. What an ingenious way to work around that biblical inconsistency. Well, anyway, I don't know if the number of decimal digits is always that important, because back in 1969, the number 3.1416 got man to the moon without all those extra decimal digits. I mean, in the transcripts of the famous O.J. Simpson trial, you can find arguments between the judge and an FBI agent about the actual value of pi. And speaking of the Simpsons trial, to quote Peter Beckman in his 1970 book, A History of Pi, the quote, 3 centuries ago, Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz, co-inventor of the calculus and co-discoverer of the first infinite series for pi, dreamt of the day where courts would be abolished because disputes could be settled mathematically by solving impractical impartial equivalencies that would show who was right and who was wrong. Beautiful idea, isn't it? Using math to explain the universe, as the physicists have been doing for years, like Albert Einstein, who was born on March 14th of 1879. Apparently pi is that much of a big deal that you can find pi in the measurements of the Greek pyramids for Giza and Giza in Egypt. Yeah, the vertical height of the pyramid and the perimeter of its base have the same relationship that the radius of the circle has to its circumference. And really, this pi number, Archimedes' constant, was one of the 16th letters of the Greek alphabet. It is such an irrational number, since it can't be defined by a fraction, and probably why I'll never remember enough of the numbers of pi in the first place, and why, when astronauts didn't have massive computers to extract calculators in the 1960s, that they settled on 3.1416 for pi. Historically, the number of pi has been used as early as 4000 BC. And each time in history, from Egypt to China to India to Persia, only an approximation was used, because this number of non-repeating, non-ordered numbers to infinity is a number we have wanted to understand throughout our history. I mean, people obsessed with pi, and it can show you, and people can even look and show your birth date in pi. If you go to facade.com and legacy.ampi, there's actually a website there you can find your birth date in pi. I don't know, but some pi may be a tasty dessert treat. But others, when it comes to math, everyone, for one reason or another, is fascinated by this infinite series. Because really, it amazes us that one specifically weird number, this one so transcendental number, can mean so much to so many people, that in so many ways, it could mean so much to so many throughout the entire world. It's just, I mean, you wonder, the math just blows people away. Now I'm going to really confuse people with this one because on March 16th is International Panda Day. And I wrote this one. And this is coming from a vegetarian, so I want to start with that one. This one is called Eliminating the Endangered Species List. Uh-oh, here we go. It's strange to think that some of the animals Americans enjoy eating today verged on America and being an endangered species. But this makes sense. When Americans first came to its pristine lands, it was their first inclination to go slaughter with impunity. I've seen in history that the British frigate ships from first discovered the Galapagos Islands. They thought that these giant tortoises were a perfect food source. So they would flip these giant animals onto their backs and have so much food as they were to go then back home. And in the U.S., bison and buffalo were on the endangered species list because of my husband's great-great-uncle and Buffalo Bill and others in the great frontier with their great mass shooting ability. And on the East Coast, labor workers at docks would eat the lobsters that seemed so common to the shores that they were almost considered garbage, that no one else would want to bother to consume them. But now, we've stripped this land and the seas dry of what we now call precious animals, and we revere them for food, as mass marketing them to hundreds can always be enjoying them at any time and any place whatsoever. And then these once consumed and now rare animals are rare on the planet. They're for mass consumption once again. Over history, we humans have learned how to exploit markets. Utilize markets so they work out to our advantage, so that everyone gets what they, quote unquote, want. Which is why I wonder now on National Panda Day, why when the endangered animal is now on the red list of threatened species, why people haven't taken my best friend's idea seriously in making animals on the endangered species list a delicacy. Because if we do that, then all these gluttonous Americans will want to make sure that these pandas are available on the market for their consumption at their leisure, because when it comes to supply and demand, that is truly the American way. Now, I'm a vegetarian, and although I can say I am all for saving a species, I wonder if us people with our big brains and our opposable thumbs at the top of this intellectual food chain, I wonder if slaughtering some animals for later consumption can actually save a species from extinction. If a vegetarian can consider that choice and wonder why, if a burger joint sells burgers, why Panda Express can't sell panda meat, then maybe we'll have to reevaluate how we save every species on the planet. After all, which lives are worth saving, one can wonder when trying to save an entire species. Why don't we make pandas a delicacy? What?
I'll be the first in line. Panda Kung Pao.
Panda Express. You can get your panda to go in 5 minutes or less. What? I don't know. I am going to try one more for a third one that I bothered to write. Is a prose poem, because the first person that ran the open mic that I took over in Chicago was doing dreams poems. And so if you can remember a dream in the morning, you write it down. And this was what I wrote on the 29th of February. Always cool to have a date of February 29th. This is called Exactly Where She Belonged. I'll start this again. Was I near the Antarctic Circle? Was I near Greenland? I don't know. I don't know who I was with, but while on a boat, separated from everyone, I fell over the edge and landed on one of those rubber boat dinghies. I can't remember if it was actually inflatable or not. I want to say it was, but I remember thinking this was way too flimsy, but at this point it was all I had. This mini boat quickly separated from the larger boat I was on, and suddenly I couldn't see anyone or anything anywhere. Just chunks of ice floating in the ocean around me. I knew I was wet from falling into the water on this boat and was able to climb into it far too gracefully. And I knew there was ice everywhere in the ocean, but I didn't feel that wet, and I didn't feel cold at all. I just knew I had to find civilization anywhere to help me get back to the world I knew. Amongst the huge chunks of ice, almost stopping this tiny rubber boat from moving, I managed to navigate myself. I didn't have oars. I can't remember if I used my hands. I navigated myself to what looked like a massive block of floating ice. I couldn't see land anywhere, but it resembled a harbor, almost a pavilion in the middle of nothingness. I apparently left my boat and went into what looked like a huge room, like a warehouse room, but not really, since it was on top of the middle of the ice in the ocean. People were milling around there like this was a giant bar of some sort, or like they were all getting together at a convention center. I looked around until I saw a woman who reminded me of a high school acquaintance, a woman I did work with back then and I was friendly with back then. Maybe that was why I felt more comfortable talking to her. She seemed totally relaxed here, like this warehouse room on the ice harbor was exactly where she belonged. And I kept saying that I fell off my boat and I need to get a hold of the people on that boat so they might find me. And this is when I pulled my cell phone out of my pocket. Don't ask me why it was still working and not waterlogged or frozen. And while I was looking at it, I was thinking of texting someone there. And that was when I realized, wait a minute, we don't get reception there. They're not going to get texts from me. So I had to do something, I thought. So I thought that maybe I could send a bulk email to everyone I knew on that boat, and maybe somehow soon one of them would get access to email and see my message. I didn't even know the contact information to email the people who ran the boat that we were even on. So then I tried to think of the names of the people I was with, and then I tried to remember their email addresses, but my hands were too cold, and I was too scared that I couldn't type the thing. I was like, well, I gotta find people, and I'm like, I can't even use my phone. What am I doing? You know, it's just mass panic, and that's when you know like things are cool when you wake up. I'm like, what on earth just happened to me? What? Makes no sense.